Welcome to another video from McFatter Tech Musser. If you like these videos, please click subscribe.
Well, good afternoon, good evening, good morning, whichever it might be. Welcome to part 3 of our final project experiment. If you recall where we left off on part 2, we had finished up our DNS and we could fully resolve our internal DNS, that's no problem. But we had no way of resolving external DNS. We can ping external IPs, that's no problem. Now, if you've done your reading, you know that technically root hints will work for resolution. However, you're going to find, in all likelihood, you're going to have a lot of problems. There may be a whole number of reasons why this may occur. First and foremost, remember, root hints is the very, very, very last thing that is attempted when trying to do DNS resolution. So that alone means it takes the longest. You may do a request, no resolution. A request, no resolution. Perhaps then finally it starts working for that one. What about the next one and the next one? The easiest way to resolve that, keep in mind that your network that you reside on, depending on your environment, may block your ability to use your root hints too. Easiest way around this is to set a forwarder. Set a forwarder on your primary DNS to the ISP, or in this case, the DNS server for our district. We don't have a connection directly to our ISP. For example, if I were doing this on my home system where I've got Comcast, I've got Comcast DNS I could use. So I could set that as my forwarder because I'm on the Comcast network. Because I'm not directly connected to an ISP, I need to use my organization's DNS. How do I find that out? Well, I've got it written on the whiteboard over here, but just very simply, you could open a command prompt, do an IP config, /all, and scroll on up here, and there's our DNS servers right there. That's all I need to know. So I'm going to jump over to my DC1. I'm only going to do this on my one DC because here again, we use internal resolution for our clients to keep them from going to the internet to resolve things. Plus, they wouldn't, if they were using external DNS, they wouldn't be able to resolve our internal clients. So they wouldn't know anything about how to resolve final DC1 or final DC2. I can tell my DC2, hey, you use DC1 as a forwarder. Anything that you don't know about, ask DC1. It's going to do this anyhow, right? Because whatever DC1 knows, DC2, it works a little bit different with those cached lookups, though. These aren't A records that we have internally in our forward lookup zones. These are cached lookups. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell DC2, hey, ask DC1 about a lookup that you don't know. DC1, it's going to be the link to the internet. It's going to be the link to our district DNS. And if district DNS doesn't know about it, it'll ask its upstream DNS. So not only do we want to restrict what our users are doing as far as DNS and going out onto the internet and going wherever and resolving wherever, keep it internally, keep it secure. Restrict the number of internet lookups that our DNS is doing. Less times we touch the internet, the more secure we are. I've got DC1 up. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to open up DC2. And you're going to see why in a few moments. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to log in on that. Oh, that's wrong password. Too many different passwords to manage. There we go. Okay, on DC1, I'm going to right-click. If I get to my DNS, there we are. I'm going to select my domain controller. I'm going to right-click. I'm going to go to Properties, and I'm going to select the Forwarders tab. I'm going to click Edit, and I'm going to add my district DNS, and also my second one. Now, let's verify, first off, that I still have a connection to the internet. Yep, I can ping Google DNS, right? Can I resolve it? I could not at the end of part 2. -A, resolve my IPv4 record. See if it'll work. There it is, DNS.google. DNS Resolution's working. I can browse the internet. I can grab resources as needed. Let me jump over to DC2. I'm going to do the same thing. Get our command prompt. I'm going to ping 8.8.8.8. It resolves, or it doesn't resolve, it pings. It's reachable. Let's see, does it resolve to DNS.google? It does. I didn't do anything. I didn't send any forwarders. It understands. All right. What about Microsoft.com? There we go. Microsoft.com. It's not going to respond because they don't respond to ping. This is simply good security procedures. For example, if you've got a firewall, you don't tell that firewall to respond to pings. Why tell the hackers you're there? So our DNS is working. I should be able to open up Internet Explorer, even though not my preferred browser. Be able to browse the internet. Give it just a moment. Yep, there it is. Okay, we're good to go. Our DNS is completely done. We've got forward lookups through our domain. We've got reverse lookups. If I turn around, if you'll notice, if I go to View, Advanced, and Expand, I can now see cached lookups appearing. And here are those cached lookups starting to arrive. .com, already a whole bunch of them. If I look over on DC2 and do that same advanced, oops, sorry, that was under reverse lookup. There's my cache lookups. Expand root. I'm not going to see the same thing. Different lookups on different devices, right? But it works. Okay, so we've got our routers. We can route between sites. We've got our sites and services configured, so our Active Directory, our domain controllers know who the bridgehead server is, how to replicate that traffic back and forth between our Active Directory. We've got our DNS fully functional. What's our next step? Next step is I'm going to add DHCP. So I've already got it started up here. Here's my DHCP server. I started it up, but I haven't set it up yet. We'll just do next, accept. We'll set our password. Next thing, as soon as our server manager comes up, we can go ahead and get our IP address set, and then we can change the server name, the computer name, and join it to the network all in one. We'll get logged in. Yep. If I type the right password, it works a little bit better. Take a few moments for this to come up. So I don't know if you noticed, but I also have my final DFS distributed file system server. It's going to work as our file server, right? I'm going to click on that while our server manager is getting ready to load. We'll click next, accept, set our password. Hopefully I typed the same password each time this time around. That's a little bit better. We'll let that go. Go ahead and connect. Don't know how far we're going to get into these labs. I want to keep them under 40 minutes each. I may even go shorter than that. Maybe what we'll do is we'll just do the DHCP day. Do the DHCP today and leave it at that. Get the DFS server up and running. Maybe we touch it, maybe we don't. Still waiting for Server Manager to load. This is not so unusual, right? While we're waiting for Server Manager to load, I want to show you something. So here's our planning document. It's also for documentation, right? What are our subnets? What are our ranges? What's our WAN links, domain names, what our routers are, what their interfaces are, all that. If we look here in the subnet 1, we can see we've defined, here again, what's the gateway address? What are our IP addresses for our various servers? What roles do they host? We can see that I've already typed out that on my DHCP, I've got 2 scopes that I'm going to be defining. One for subnet 1, one for subnet 2, right? This is the way it works. I'm going to have to do DHCP Relay on my one router. Remember we installed that? We were preparing. Well, in addition to that, you want to map your network. If I scroll down here, you can see that I already created a basic map of how I'm going to lay this out. This was real easy to make, by the way. There's lots of resources that you can find to do this. If I go to my web browser and I simply type in draw.io and press enter, it's going to roll over to a different site, app.diagrams.net. I can simply say create a new diagram. I want it to be a network diagram, and what format do I want to use? You know what, this time I'm going to do it just a basic network, and we'll create. And we'll just call it test. And we'll put it in downloads, not documents. We'll click on that, and there is a basic network drawing already there. All the icons are there. You can use it, or you can, as you saw, there was ones for Active Directory, for Cisco. There's all sorts of templates that you can use. If I don't see the icons that I want here, I can say more shapes, and I can add what I want. Maybe Amazon Web Services. Am I working with Amazon Web Services? Am I working with Cisco? Whatever it might be. Veeam, if I'm doing backup and recovery. You know, doing virtual backups and creating on-the-fly images and stuff, so that I've got full replication of not only my virtual infrastructure but my physical infrastructure. Okay, you get the idea. Document, and make it a living document. Update it, keep it relevant. Our networks change constantly, so must our documentation. Okay, so our server's up. I should have left my document open, right? I know what my name is going to be, but I don't remember what my IP is. Well, that's why we have those documents. Let's go back to that. Okay, so it's going to be 1.4. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to go to our network connections. We're going to right click, we're going to go properties, Internet Protocol version 4, 192.168.1.4. We're going to use our classful class C. 192.168.1.1 is our gateway, and our DNS is 192.168.1.2. I can add my what if my DNS goes down? Well, I've got a second DNS that I can utilize in case it's down. 2.2. Click OK. There we are. It knows about our network. We're going to name it Final DHCP. And I'm going to join it to my domain. What was my domain name? Remember? Project.local. Just press enter. If I did everything else correctly, it's going to see my domain. It should ask me to provide credentials to join. It's taking a while though. It's making me wonder. Here. There we are. I'm going to use that alternative credentials. Remember, we don't use default permissions. We don't use default accounts. I'm going to think a little bit. I should get a welcome. There it is. Before I can even get it out. Welcome to the project.local domain. I'm just going to press enter. It's going to tell me, hey, don't forget, you got to restart. And I got that warning again. You know what? I don't care. I'm just going to press OK. I'm going to hit tab. I'm going to close. I'm going to restart now. I don't know why I'm getting that. Honestly, I don't know. I don't care. I know it works. I did a whole nother lab, a whole nother build of 8 other machines. Never saw that. Don't know. You know what? One of these days, maybe I'll check it out and see if I can investigate why it works. But you know what? It works. Why I get that, I don't know. Not so worried about it. We're just going to let it restart. I'm just kind of rambling on here for a moment while it does that. A lot of talking today. Reconnect. Here we go. We're joined. If I jump over to DC1, that's DFS. Let's get you out of the way. I'm going to just jump over to DC1, and I'm going to go to my Active Directory Users and Computers, ADUC. In fact, when that comes up, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pin that to my taskbar. This is an Active Directory. This is a domain controller, right? Keep the tools that you utilize all the time at your disposal. I'll pin sites and services there, even though I'm not going to normally change that a lot, right? So there's my 2 domain controllers. There's our DHCP. I can close that, minimize this. What am I going to log into? I'm going to use my alternative credentials. I'm going to create the local user resources. Once that comes up, we've already named it. We've already joined it. It's got static IP. Yep. Next thing is install DHCP. Let this begin to provide a service. Remember, servers provide services. Eventually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a Windows 10 machine, and that's going to be my administration point. I'm going to add all the remote server administration tools to it. I'm not going to log into servers to manage them. I'm going to do it remotely. I don't care whether that server's on the other side of the room or the other side of the world. Manage it remotely. Can't tell you how many times I managed servers that were 100 miles away. I'm not going to drive somewhere just to do an hour's worth of work on a server. That's ridiculous. Use the tools that we've got at our disposal. That's what makes you a valuable employee, understanding how to do these things. Coming back up. We'll be back up here in a moment. Depending on how long some of these things, I may edit some of these delays out. Let me just jump over to Server Manager real quick to see how we're at, how we're working. Yep. Now, final DHCP, it's wanting to use a lot of memory. Not playing so nice right now, is it? There's our Server Manager. So, it seems to want to use a lot of RAM right now. Let's see if that's still staying up there. It is. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to shut this down. And when I restart it fresh, I bet you it's going to start behaving nicely on the network. So I'm going to right click, I'm going to shut down, shut down. Why am I shutting down? Well, we're going to call it operating system reconfiguration plan. Why do I pick a reason? Because it gets logged into Event Viewer. That way, if someone else views this, they can understand why it occurred. Go back here, we're going to double click, we'll access it one more time, we're going to open, start it up, minimize that server manager. Here we go. Log in, let's take a look in our Hyper-V manager. Giga RAM. That's what we want to see. 1.1, 1.2, 1.4, all good. It's probably not going to, that's climbing up again. 1.6, almost 1.7. Kind of doubt that it's going to go any higher than that. We're logged in. We're just going to wait for our server manager to finish loading before we go to manage add roles and features. Some of these I might do through PowerShell. Right now I just want you to understand what's going on. I asked my students today, they were working on storage, and virtually everything they did was through PowerShell. If you don't understand PowerShell, you got to get with the program. That's the way to manage things. Once you've got those custom scripts built, 1, 2, 3, you're done. Oh, this thing's consuming RAM again. That's interesting. It's unusual. But our server manager's up. I'm going to go ahead and we're going to do manage, add role and feature. We'll click next 3 times. I'm going to select, DHCP. We'll add our administration tools. We'll click next, 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 and install. Once our installation is done, we will need to finalize our configuration, and what that does is it authorizes this to be a DHCP server in Active Directory. Remember, you only want authorized servers functioning in your network. We don't want rogue DHCP servers. We don't want rogue DNS servers. They can act as man in the middle, redirecting people to malicious sites. We want to integrate all these services as much as possible into our Active Directory to keep them secure. Depending on what I'm doing, you know what? We may go back and revisit. I don't know if I will or not, but I may implement DNS security, DNSSEC. Why not? It's not that difficult to do. Secure your DNS. Secure your systems. Were we working in a network, we would have our managed switches, we'd have all sorts of different VLANs, we'd be segmenting out our network, making sure that we only allow access to where is necessary. You know, moving away from that model that I've got a set of credentials, I'm trusted, I can go anywhere, to a zero trust model. You're going to see and hear more of that every day as you do more and more in networking. So, until that finishes, I'm going to pause this video while it finishes. Okay, there it finished. It only took about another 15-20 seconds, but it was taking long enough. Complete DHCP configuration. That's our next step. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to click on that. This creates security groups. Who is an authorized DHCP user? Who is an authorized DHCP administrator? This is how we can delegate responsibility as well. We're going to click Next. We're going to use our credentials, our domain credentials. This is why it's important to have been logged on with domain credentials, otherwise it wouldn't work. We're going to click Commit. There it is, we're good. I can close my wizard, and we're going to go ahead and we're going to get our DHCP scopes created. I'm going to click Tools, I'm going to go to DHCP. Since this is my DHCP server, first thing I'm going to do once my console opens up is I'm going to pin it to the taskbar. Do that first. Wow, this thing's performing a little slow. Okay, pin. Come here. Come on. Sometimes I don't like the mouse, right? Sometimes that's why it's a lot easier to work with PowerShell. We're going to go ahead and expand our server. We're going to expand IPv4. I'm going to right-click IPv4. I'm going to say New Scope. Now, I'm going to relabel my document because under Scopes, I had it saying Scope 1 and Scope 2. I'm going to call it Subnet 1, Subnet 2. And I will update my documentation to reflect that. Subnet 1. If I move this over, I can see I've already decided what our range is going to be. This is a small network, just a small lab environment, so I'm only going to make a couple IPs available. 192.168.1.150 to 192.168.1.159. Doesn't need to be very large. I'm going to leave it to be at classful Class C. We'll click Next. Because we're restricting a small subset of our IPs, we don't need to do any exclusions. We're going to leave our lease duration at 8 days. We could make that shorter, we could make it longer, depends on the size of your environment and what your security concerns are. We are going to configure some DHCP options. Our default gateway, 192.168.1.1. Click Add. Next. It sees our domain name. It sees our DNS servers. We're good. We're golden. We've already got these settings. Click Next. We're not using Win servers. We don't need backwards compatibility for NetBIOS. We're going to activate that scope right now and finish. So there's our first scope. I'm going to create my second scope. Right-click IPv4, New Scope. Next. Subnet 2. Enter. 192.168.2. Oops, what did I do there? 168.2.150 and 192.168.2.159. That's what I've got. Yep, that's what I've got. We're going to do Next. No exclusions. Lease duration's good. Let's configure those additional options. 192.168.2.1. Add. There's our domain or DNS servers. Oh, you know what? Because this is for DC2 that uses 2.2, I want to change the order of our DNS servers. I'm going to move this up. So it resolves with the DNS server where that site is at. Can't reach that one? Then use your other one. Next, 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 and finish. There's our two scopes. If we look here, we can see those scope options. There's our listing of DNS, router, gateway, all those things. Our scope options over here with our DNS servers flip-flopped. Our DNS is ready to go. If I look, move this over a little bit so we can see our subnet 1. Let's see address leases. Nothing there yet. I'm going to jump over to my final DFS. It's logged on. going to click on local server. In fact, I'm not even going to. I'm going to, let's see what our IP address is. Does it have an APIPA? It does. So let's do this. I'm just going to I'm going to log off, I'm going to sign out, let's see if signing back in is enough to get an IP address. Don't know. Don't think it will be. Kind of doubt it. No, not yet. Let's go back in here into our network connections. We're going to go to properties, and we're going to go IPv version 4. And actually, you know what? Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to disable my adapter. I'm going to re-enable it and see whether that's enough for it to make it one up there. That's all it took. That's all it took. And now I've got an IP address. Got gateway. I should have all my settings. There we are. If I jump back over to DC1, oh, sorry, not DC1, DHCP. Refresh. There's my lease. You'll notice that it doesn't have the server name. We didn't set that yet. If we set the server name, it's going to update not only in DNS, but it'll update in DHCP. But remember, this is not what we're working on, not DHCP. We're working over here. I'm going to go to local server. Here again, this is a server. We want to set static IP address. It's going to be .3, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to set that. And you know what? I'm getting kind of carried away. I'm going to stop at this point because my goal was to get DNS configured. I'm sorry, my goal was to get DHCP configured. Been a long day. You heard me say that a couple times now, haven't you? It's the end of the day. That's the only time that I get a little bit of time on my own here to do this stuff. So let's take a look. Let's do one last thing. I'm going to go back to Server Manager. I'm going to go to my router 2. Because remember, that's going to be my 192.168.2x subnet, right? We're going to go ahead and get logged in there. This is where our DHCP Relay agent is. I'm going to select that. I'm going to right click. I'm going to say New Interface. It wants to listen on subnet 2. Listen for clients looking for an IP address. That's what we're going to listen to. All right? We're going to right click on that. Go to Properties. That's that, right? Now, if I go to Properties, I specify, hey, where do I send those requests? If you've taken my networking program, you know the process. What are the steps to get an IP address? Dora the Explorer, right? DORA, discover, offer, request, acknowledge. Dora the Explorer. Memorize that. You'll never forget how it works. 192.168.1. What's my DHCP server? Thank you. .4. Add that. It was .4, wasn't it? Yeah, it was. Now, when our relay agent listening on subnet 2 here's a request, a discovery, remember it's a broadcast, hey, are there any DHCP servers out there? It's going to relay that to our DHCP server. It in turn will reply back and say, hey, I've got an IP you can have. The client then turns around and says, I'm going to request that IP from you, Mr. or Mrs. DHCP server. And then finally, the DHCP server acknowledges back to the client and everybody else that's out there, here's your IP and your configuration. Most of this is all broadcast. Because until that client accepts the IP address and accepts those settings, nothing's written in stone at that point. So at this time, I'm going to wrap this video up because we've, at the beginning, finished our DNS to be able to resolve external IPs and websites and host names, A records, quad A records, whatever, MX record, whatever it is. We can do it now. And we've built our DHCP server with scopes for both subnet 1, subnet 2, and the ability to listen for requests from subnet 2 and relay them through our router to our DHCP server. Thank you very much for watching this. We're going to continue our setup with our file services in part 4. Take care, everybody. Thank you for watching.